Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the session for Women in Mining. My name is Dina Alnahdy. I am a member of the National Mining Committee in the United Chambers of Commerce. We have a very important and crucial discussion today about women in the mining sector. Shaping the future of mining is inclusive of defining and building a critical mass for women in the sector. Currently, women are represented an estimated of 8 to 7% of the global mining workforce, which on a global level is very low. In our session, we strive to shed light on promoting the employment, retention, and advancement of women in the mining sector, as well as innovation and diversity of opportunities for women in the sector. Rebranding the mining sector to create awareness and better knowledge of the sector also, in general, is crucial for community understanding and engagement. Education and training needs and requirements of this growth and evolving sector is a key enabler to attract high standard of diversity and talented women. To discuss this global topic, we have these admirable lady panelists. With us, first is Emily King, founder of Prospector and Chief Innovation Officer of Analog Gold.
Thank you.
Sheila Kama, former CEO, De Beers, Botswana. We have Wendy Tyrrell, Executive Director, Development Partner Institute. Christine Gibbs Stewart, CEO, Ostmine Limited. Engineer Masha'al Al-Umair, Product Engineer from Ma'adin. And Amanda Van Dyke from Arch Emerging Partners. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Emily, we see and we know that the mining sector has a certain stereotype, if we want to say. And there's been a long history of certain direction for women, which was very, very minimal. And we can honestly say that even for men, the opportunities were in certain silos. So I would like to hear from you, how do you see adopting and applying new technologies to the mining sector an opportunity for women?
Yeah, I think it's huge for women in particular, but also the youth, the young workforce of today in general, in two ways. The integration of technology into the operational side of mining can allow people to join the mining industry in a way that is perhaps more attractive from a job perspective. A lot of people think mining and they still have the picture of the West Virginia coal miner with dirt all over their face, headed underground with a pickaxe, right? Exactly. And in reality, our industry is so much more high-tech these days that you can be working in a command center in Australia for a completely remote autonomous mine. And there are lots of other ways that technology is integrated in with geospatial data, with artificial intelligence, with chemistry and physics that can really be more appealing these days, I think, to generally women and young men who are looking for work-life balance and a different type of environment. And I also think that the way the industry is leaning towards using more cutting-edge technology on the exploration side, on the finance and investing side, will try to pull people in who maybe went into investment banking first, and now they're taking a look at mining finance, or chemistry, now looking at geochemistry, right? And the more we can integrate technology into all the different ways that the sector works, I think the more attractive we'll be to young people in general and women specifically.
Amazing. So basically we're saying that the fourth industrial revolution has opened unlimited opportunities and takes innovation into another direction with thinking of all kinds of different opportunities or education levels into engraving it into the mining sector.
Absolutely. We all, working in the sector already, understand how much mining is integrated into our everyday life, but I think more and more the industry is starting to integrate other industries and sectors into our own business, and that will only make us stronger.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Sheila, we'd like to hear from you on a global perspective. How do you see women and the opportunities for them in the mineral sector?
Thank you very much. I think that it's important to provide some kind of context. So apparently at 2021, 49.6% of the entire population of the world comprises of women. If you think about the productive side of mining, that speaks fundamentally to the single most important resource, which is the human resource. If we sterilize 50% of the world's human resource, it's impossible we can achieve the goals that we aspire for in mining. And so the statistics speak for themselves. On the output side, which is to say the consumption, apparently women account, the purchasing power of women accounts for about between 35 and 43 trillion American dollars. And so if we don't engage women in the workplace, we potentially undermine the potential to consume the very goods that we want to produce in the mining sector. So I think if we just look at that alone, that speaks to the importance of including women. But if I think about how we do that, I would be deluding myself to think I have the solution. But I have a sense of some potential areas of consideration. The first is that there is a time and place, there is a cultural context, there is a historic context. I think the region ought to look at its own cultural and historic context and say, where are we today? And given what we want to achieve and given what we know about our cultures, our values, what is the best way to harness our women's energy, both in the productive and the purchasing space? The baby boomers in the United States have their own context. The suffragettes in the United Kingdom have their own context. The question is, what is the context of the women in the region? And I think if we address that, then not only do we move forward with women, but we do so in a way that is constructive and not disruptive to the historic and the cultural context, which I think is so important. But I also want to tag on to Emily's point. The fourth industrial revolution and all things internet have given the world an opportunity to harness women's human resource power without disrupting their responsibility in society as mothers and people who nurture and look after others at home. This is a great opportunity for us to think, how can we use remote technology, digital technology, to enable women to work without having to make a choice between whether they contribute to mining or leave children unattended to? I think this is an important opportunity that is worth considering. And I think if we do so, we will be able to make sure that it isn't, the burden is not placed on women to choose, but that the burden is placed on society. The problem, what happens to women, is not a women's problem, it's a society's issue, and it is one that we should tackle collectively. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you very much. You covered a lot of very important issues. And I think that what you mentioned, one of the points that you actually mentioned, maybe I will ask Wendy to elaborate more on that very important part of inclusivity of women by education. You know, you're all about bridging the gaps. And when bridging the gaps, we do see that there is a new era of needs and requirements in the mining and mineral sector. So the education is not yet up to that direction. How do you see bridging the gaps between the market need and education?
Thanks, Dina, for the question, and thanks for the opportunity to be part of this important panel. I'm going to speak in response to your question in the context of development partnership. Our organisation, the Development Partner Institute, is focused on development partnership and the contribution to society around mining through development partnership. What I see in travelling around the world with our work is that there's enormous capacity for women through working in mining operations, through the people that we connect with in all the way from banking right through the value chain to and with communities and Indigenous people to the consumer products end of the value chain. And I see women bringing special qualities to each of those parts of the mining value chain. So in bridging where we are now to where we need to be in the context of the massive transformation that mining needs to take, there is an opportunity for education from, I think yesterday we spoke about elementary school, from elementary school to high school, to university, to open the door, and much of this is about mindset. Open the door to being inclusive of women, to being inclusive of communities, to being inclusive of Indigenous people. And the mining sector itself, mining, has a genuine opportunity in this moment to think differently about how to bring women into the sector. And to bridge those gaps, it's also about entrepreneurs, and that can be entrepreneurs at a local level, so suppliers to mine sites, providing opportunities for women to engage in entrepreneurship. And there are some wonderful programs around the world, so if I could just choose one to speak about. Impact Capital Africa, which started in Zambia and has been focused on bringing impact investors together with entrepreneurs. There's a wonderful part of that program which is about educating entrepreneurs to build their organizations, and it has opened the door to both men and women. So, and particularly interested in providing opportunities for women entrepreneurs. I think the last thing I would say in response to your question is that this opportunity for education must go all the way through to board level, senior executives and
Yes.
board level. And there are fantastic opportunities to broaden the space for women through education and mentorship and sponsorship of women as well.
Thank you very much, Wendy. That was very elaborate, and I'm going to pick up on the entrepreneurship part, and I'm going to ask Christine to give us a live example. You're an entrepreneur, and you started a business as a service to the mining sector. Can you explain and show how does that open opportunities and help you, as also Sheila has mentioned, to make it the ease and comfort for you as a woman working for the mining sector and a mother and wife and family life?
Yes, thank you for the question, and it's fantastic to be here today talking about this important issue. I guess as an entrepreneur, you can pave your own way. You can make your own decisions, and you can set your own goals and targets. And in that way, you can demonstrate to others how things should be working and how you want them to work. And so I think in my career, I've been very fortunate to work in roles and positions where I have been able to set those goals that I want for diversity and inclusion, and also to work with others to communicate the importance of what that means from a service provider, from a technology point of view, and also how that adds to the, I guess, to the richness and also to the delivery and solutions of what people are trying to do. But I guess one of the things why we're talking about this issue is because we are looking for the best talent. We need the best and brightest to join the mining industry because of the challenges that we face in the future and because of the war for talent we currently have around the globe. And in order to do that, we need to think differently because of the perception of mining that we've been talking about, that it's not a woman-friendly industry. We really need to step up and we need to be leaders. And so I think from the entrepreneurial point of view, women and men have the opportunity to lead so that we can encourage more women into the workforce. Recently, there was a survey done of women in mining in Australia, and about 500 women participated. And the number one thing they said for attracting and retaining women in mining was leadership. Mm-hmm. They need people to lead to ensure that women are included. They need to make sure, leaders need to make sure that people are treated fairly. They need to call out bad behavior. They need to encourage women and promote women. And most importantly, they need to listen. They need to listen to what is needed to really foster and grow women into the mining industry. You talked about 8 and 9% of women in the global mining workforce. In Australia, a very mature mining market, it's only 16%. And as Sheila has pointed out, we're missing a huge opportunity to fill roles with very talented women. And so it's up to all of us to lead and encourage those women to come into our industry.
Thank you very much, Christine. I'm gonna turn to you, Masha'il, as a young leader in the domain and being a product engineer. I'm gonna pick up on what Christine said as paving the way for the youth and coming in. You have on-hands experience with work on sites. And how important is the safety culture? And preparing on-site amenities, you know, specifically for women, as well as sensitive training.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this panel. It's great being surrounded by such a successful group of women, and it's great here speaking to the audience. Definitely, well, I'm a metallurgist, so it's a type of product. In the end, we produce the metal. And part of my job is to be on site. And, you know, when you're in a male-dominated field or you're in a minority of any kind, sometimes you have these unclear signs of exclusivity. Maybe they're not intentional, but, you know, the PPEs are provided for the men on site. So when you come in of different size, it's kind of hard to find something that's safe. So, and PPE is protective personal equipment. So we need to be safe on site. We need to have our safety steel-toe boots and our hard hats and obviously the clothing itself. But you know, when you also talked about sensitivity training. So when you go and you work on field that's dominated by men who are at ease working with each other, you kind of have maybe it's a bit of a challenge to get your work done or to get your point across. But in the end, you know, they're mostly well-intentioned, and it's just getting over that barrier and, you know, providing PPEs for women, having the sensitivity training, having the amenities on site that are fit for women. So it's, you know, being in Saudi, which is now starting having women in the mining, it's not a question of if. I mean, it's definitely a question of just when and how much, and we are definitely starting this. So, you know, I believe us being of this land, we, both men and women, just want to be, you know, great stewards of the resource. So just facilitating how do we get our work done? How do we be the stewards of the resource there? And it is happening and it's changing.
Thank you, Masha'il. That directly has me look at the audience and a shout out to all the men leaders in the mining and mineral sector to realize that attention to details is very important. And women leadership and having women on C-levels and boards will add that value to the detail of all levels that are needed. And it's a shout out and it's a request. And we know that our Vision 2030 here in the Kingdom is highly supporting women in the employment and in all different sectors, and we do see that more and more. Ma'aden, for an example, is already 20% as a company of female employees, which is an amazing opportunity for obviously women. But then once again, attention to details is crucial. Thank you for that, Masha'il. Amanda. It's been mentioned a lot, the leadership. Leadership also needs mentorship, and it needs networking. A lot of that helps and works to give the women in the workplace the opportunity. So, can you tell us, from your opinion, how do you see the leadership of men and women for women?
Thank you. To answer the question, I think I should give you a bit of context. I presently manage a private equity fund in the sustainable resources space, so we invest in junior mining to get them into production. But when I started my career, I started with Women in Mining UK, and we over 10 years ago, and we published some of the first research on women on boards at the top of leadership in the global mining sector. And at that time, women on boards there were less women on boards in the mining industry than any other industry in the world. Since then, things have changed, and we'll be updating the research for 10 years later. But at the time, women in mining in the UK, a country that has almost no actual mining left, had over 1,500 women. And those women came from all walks of life and all professions. And I think it's less understood that you can come to the mining industry from almost every profession. We had lawyers, accountants, geologists, engineers, investment professionals like myself, who were all climbing the leadership ranks of the corporate headquarters of many companies. And I was incredibly impressed yesterday when I heard His Royal Highness, the Minister of Energy for Saudi Arabia, say, put women first. He said the women and men. And he also said that his team was actually majority female, which I found incredibly impressive. But it shows you that in every industry, in every part of the world, women have the ability, when they are encouraged by their leaders, to enter the workforce in an enabling environment that is supportive and respectful and safe for women, and they know they have an equal opportunity based on merit to participate and climb the ladder. You have to start, everyone has to start somewhere, and you need a network. And the leaders in every industry, including mining, have traditionally been male, but it is through their support that women who work hard are allowed to climb that ladder. It's how women like myself are given the ability to get positions of power and directorship, to get onto boards. From the lowest position, women in mining have moved up. And it is through professional accreditation and encouragement and hard work, with the leadership of everyone realizing that the best talent can rise to the top. And I think that as long as you have an open mind and you're encouraging women, that slowly but surely they will get to the top. And they will be able to sit at the table. It takes everybody. It takes a village. It's an old expression, but it's true. We might be half of the population, but we're also a part of the global community. And it is when women are encouraged to come to the table, to sit at that table and participate, that they will get there. Given the opportunity, women will always climb. And by facilitating an environment where women are welcome, that is fundamentally how we get there. And the leadership of the mining industry, I remember sitting around the table from Mark Bristow, who's also here. Mark Bristow has always encouraged, the CEO of Barrick, has always encouraged women to sit at the table. He was hiring junior geologists and engineers 30 years ago. And those women are now senior in his organization. Mm-hmm. And I think that it is from that leadership that recognizes talent and encourages women to come to the top that you will get there. And I think that Saudi Arabia seems extremely well placed to allow women to participate in the professional development of the mining industry.
Amazing. Thank you very much, Amanda. I think that we'd like to hear from, or actually just have a feel of the audience here, because I see all male. So listening to this panel, how do you see yourselves actually promoting and supporting women? How many would bring in a junior female into the meeting room? Can you raise your hands? It's a fair percent. Thank you for your honesty. Not everybody raised their hand, but I think that's exactly the point. There are different perspectives and different beliefs and different reasons why we've seen, a percentage of gentlemen have raised their hands, and maybe 50% others did not. And I thank you for that honesty. But then maybe we should actually, here, use that opportunity to say, why don't we think that is the case, and how can we adjust this mindset? As you fairly said, it's a mindset. So how can we adjust this mindset with the men first? Because at the end of the day, the community, whether it's a business or whether it's a social community, it's men and women together. It's not men alone, it's not women alone. We need to work together. We need to make things happen together. Families happen with the men and women together. Raising children, workforce, and it's the same thing. There are different skill sets, as you said. And how can we make this work together and actually convince the 50% of the gentlemen here
if you allow
to
support?
I think one of the...
Go ahead, Emily. No, go ahead.
No.
Okay, Masha'al has something
just
burning to say, so go ahead.
It's just something that, be aware of your unconscious bias. I mean, and it goes both ways. I mean, some of the men would say, I wouldn't, give this opportunity to a woman because I've never seen a woman do this. Whereas, I will give this opportunity to a man because I assume he can do it. Yes. But it also goes both ways. I, for example, might assume that my manager might not give me this position, so I won't ask for it.
Right.
And just both men and women being aware of their unconscious bias and challenging that. Just saying, this is what I need to get my work done and to, be a valuable member to the business and to the society, and so I'm asking for it.
Amazing, thank you. So it's a two-way road, and self-awareness is very important. Sorry, Emily, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
I was going to say this is certainly not a problem specific to Saudi Arabia. I'm the Vice President of Women in Mining USA, and when I'm talking to companies in the US or operating in the US about this specific problem, what I find is male executives or geologists, or they oftentimes are nervous and don't want to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. Oftentimes, that kind of exclusion can come about out of concern for not wanting to make young women in particular feel uncomfortable. And I think that's where organizations like Women in Mining, USA, UK, Saudi Arabia can be an asset, right? Because we can come into a company, we can host workshops, and we're comfortable answering questions, right? I think it's very important that there are no stupid questions in this space, especially when companies are really trying to do the right thing and open up for the first time. And there are a lot of companies that have gone that way before and can also mentor those companies. That's another thing, is there are a lot of companies in the US. Newmont is one that comes to mind. Their director for diversity and inclusion oftentimes goes to other companies to talk about how they put their programs in place. But I think just allowing people to ask questions and not feel silly or stupid and not being worried about saying the wrong thing, so that you can really get that honesty as you saw, right? Because it's only from there. The next question is why, as you asked. And it's only if people feel comfortable saying why they feel that way that you can meet them where they are and help to advance the cause.
Amazing. So no judgment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. So Sheila, you sit on many boards. You've been on C-levels in many different international companies. How did you get there?
Yes, I got there because of men. This is God's truth. As a young, and it started right at the beginning. My grandfather, I didn't have a son, and he said of my mother, "You will have the same power, the same authority in our village as your cousins. And I will instruct my younger brothers to treat you as if you were my son." And so I grew up in a family where the woman was the leader. And it was not until I left home at 14 and I went to boarding school that I saw a headmaster who was a man. And I thought, what is going on here? Where are the women? and so the mold was cast. But it started with my grandfather. Fast forward 30 years later, the first appointment in the mining industry, I was interviewed by a panel of men, and they appointed me. The next stage, when I was the CEO of De Beers in Botswana, I was appointed by men, and I served on boards with men. So let us be clear. The men are not the enemy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's important to acknowledge and recognize that. But it is also important to recognize that the things we say to our children at home instruct their attitude in the world. What men and women say to the children at home will form their sense of self-belief. If you ask me how I got to where I am, it isn't that I'm more intelligent than anyone. It is that I had an attitude, the belief that I was as good as a man. To be sure, hanging around with men, earlier on in my career, all my clothes were pinstripe suits because I thought to succeed I had to dress like a man. Well, let me be clear, you don't have to.
Yes.
Don't make the same mistake.
That's right.
But there is no substitute for hard work.
Yes.
I made it difficult for the men not to notice me. I worked so hard. If I wasn't in the room, they knew something was missing. There is no substitute for that.
Absolutely. Amazing.
The truth of the matter is the world, whether you look at it gender, material, otherwise, is not a level playing field. To succeed, you have to recognize that, don't take it personally,
Yes.
but prove them wrong. And any good leader, as somebody said, will find the right person because they know that person will make them succeed. So I do think that hard work. Now, coming to the region, apart from all that, of course, we need to help.
I'm sorry, but we're running out of time.
Okay.
And you're saying jewels.
So I'll leave it at that because
But
I
I just
think-
would like to give an
Yes,
opportunity
of course.
because what you've said, there are
sorry.
so many things that could
Thank
be picked up on. So thank you,
yes.
and excuse me for that.
Not at all.
I know you have, I can see it in your eyes. So I'm not even going to ask you. Go ahead.
I have a different personal experience to Sheila. So I grew up...
Please keep it in 1 minute.
I'll keep it succinct. I grew up on a cattle property and no one in my family had ever been to university. And somewhere in my heart, I just had this burning desire to learn and to share what I was learning. And so I went to university, much to my parents' chagrin. They were not supportive at all. They couldn't picture me in that role as someone who was educated at university. I then went into mining kind of by accident, and it's the sponsors that saw something in me. Hard work was very much a part of it, but people who believed in me and who believed that I could contribute.
Yes.
And those people have been vitally important to enable me to achieve the things that I have achieved and the contribution that I've made. So they haven't done it for me, but having that sponsorship is fundamental. So I would ask all the men in the room to consider what sponsorship you can offer to women, because as Sheila said earlier, around 50% of the population is women. We have much to contribute to mining and to the world stage and the transformation of mining.
Yeah, you know, I would add to that passion. I think that people see passion, whether it's men or women, and that was my personal experience. I started 20 years ago as an entrepreneur, starting my own business in a domain that was a totally man-dominated domain. Until today, it still is. And the passion it made a huge difference. Because with passion, then you're working hard, you're proving yourself, etc. But you keep that going. So in half a minute, I'm sorry, the time is just getting shorter and shorter. But Christine, your last takeaway.
Well, I guess my career and reflecting on what has been successful for women is making it easy for women to opt in and not opt out. So many women, because they have pressures on them, particularly from a child rearing point of view, just think it's too hard and opt out. And what I have found throughout my career is I've had a lot of men, because they have been men who've championed me through my career, have just made it really easy for me, have just enabled me to have a flexible working environment. So if my child was sick, I remember one time being at a board meeting and there was a knock on the door and it was my EA and she was saying, you know, your son has been taken to the doctor or whatever, and I had to leave. But that was okay with the people around the board table.
Right.
So make it easy for women to opt in, and then we can ensure that we have strong participation from women in mining.
Amazing. Musha'al.
Well, I mean, like many of you, I also had, and I still have, mentors, both men and women, who are continuously sponsoring me and helping me. And so I'm going to extend this thanks to all of them, and they know who they are, and I hope to see more. I think, you know, having Women in Mining USA and Women in Mining UK, I think it's about time to start Women in Mining Saudi Arabia.
Absolutely.
Yay!
Yes, yes. And I am going to use your own takeaway to tell you and the audience that it's how you speak to yourself first of all. So it's your own personal attitude that comes first, and then it's what you're going to mirror from the rest of the people. Amanda.
I echo the experiences of this panel in that at every part of my career, I was often the first woman to sit at the table. And in every part of that, it was a man who took the risk and said, I think you're talented, I think you're smart, and I'm going to invite you to this table to sit down. And I've been very privileged in my career to be sponsored and mentored by very many men who took that risk and what I would also say, that opportunity on me. And when I thanked them for that opportunity, they looked back at me and said, you're smart. You're very, very smart. You're smarter than a lot of your peers. And the risk was an opportunity for me. 50% of the workforce and the graduates in this country as well are women. And by taking that risk on women, you get to pick from the best of them. And they will, I assure you that if you do take that risk on bringing a woman to your table, she will reward that risk with incredible hard work and loyalty to you to help you build your businesses and make them better.
Thank you, Amanda. With that, I'm going to say it's not a risk, it's an opportunity. So thank you very much for this very honest and transparent discussion. I thank you also, the audience, for participating and being supportive. And we look forward to having women inclusivity in the workforce, in the services provided, and creating new hubs for women and supporting women. Thank you very much, ladies. It's been a privilege. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance.